In this video, we're going to be looking over this Pentax-M Super 35mm film camera, and this one is equipped with the fast f1.4 50mm SMC Pentax-M lens. And my goal in looking this over here is to put this through the kind of test that you would want to do if you had it in your own hands in making a decision to buy it or not. And so I'm going to open the battery compartment here, and it's nice and clean, and we'll put in some batteries. These are not included in the sale, but they're just here for testing purposes. So we'll put the cover back on and get that started, and tighten it in with the nickel. Okay, so the it basically seems very functional, and I thought what I would do is just go through a lot of the basic things here. If we open up the back of the camera by lifting up on this knob, we can see the inside, and we can watch the shutter, and we can watch the film advance over here. And I feel along here on the edges of the door there is some residue from light seal material, so there's some deterioration. I don't know how critical it is to do all that work right away to replace that, but basically looks pretty good. And while we have this out and open, I'm going to load the scrap roll of film just to show how that goes. We load that on this side, push the handle down, bring this tail across here and get it into this spool over here and wind it, and we can see it starting to wind around, so we know it's loading properly. So now we can close the door. Then you have to fire off a few shots to get up to picture number 1, which is right there. Okay, so now this camera here, it features on this knob just a lock, an auto, a manual, a 1/25th, and bulb setting. So we're going to start with it in auto, and we'll try a few things here. Now, if I point this at us here and it's cocked and ready to go, I'm going to set this at f5.6 and point it right here. Okay, we saw that go. Now, with the camera set in exactly the same orientation, I'm going to shut off these lights here. The video will reset, but it's much darker right here now. And it was a slower shutter speed. And if we really block this off, much slower yet. So I would say that shows that the electronics are working for the auto feature. We could also test the 1/125th and the bulb, in which case the shutter will stay open as long as I hold the button down. And the lens will stay stopped down as well. And then the cycle completes when I let up. If we want to try the self timer, we can pull that down, and then we just start it like that, and it will complete its cycle. And it did, so that's working. Now, in order to check other types of shutter speeds here, I have to set it on manual and lift it out of sight here for a moment, because you can only access that from inside the viewfinder. And so I'm going to set this down to a full 4 seconds, which is a long time, but then we're going to, so now it will stay for 4 seconds until it completes the cycle. And then I'm going to set it all the way up to 1/2000th of a second, and we'll repeat that. And this is going to be really fast. So that's working. About this point, Okay, there I think I've reached the end of my film. So now on this camera, to rewind, you have to push this button on the bottom, lift this crank here, and then crank it back into the housing manually. And there, I felt it break free. So now I know it's all back in the housing, and let's open this up and see. Yes, it is. It's all over here. So if this were a real roll of film, we could take that and have it processed. The other things that I thought I should do is take the lens off, and we can look in the mirror box here. And I'm just going to set that at the 1/125th setting, and so we can see that. Everything looks pretty good in there. I don't see any problems. And then there's the lens itself. The focus is nice and smooth. That's really nice. That feels very good. The aperture ring has nice clicks on all the stops. If we leave it stopped down to f/22 and flip the lever, we can see the aperture blades. They're quick and snappy, and they're also very clean. You want to look for oil on those, and I don't see any on either side looking in there. So now what I'm going to do is set this at f1.4, wide open, and shine a bright LED flashlight in the back. And now when I do that, I see some slight haze and dust and stuff in there. Nothing real serious as far as fungus, but I'd say there's some dust and haze in there. And when I look from the back to the front, I don't know if I can get that to light up in the video, but there is something kind of back near the back element here, and so I'm just going to run the light around, and hopefully at some point it kind of shows up. But anyway, there's a little bit of fog and haze and dust and stuff in there, so be aware of that. The lens mounts properly on the camera. Now I was going to take the batteries back out because they're not included. Now I'll put this back on. And this camera comes with, well, put the lens cap back on the front. Okay, and then around the back I have the little Pentax viewfinder cover, and this is used sometimes if you have the camera on a tripod and it's away from your eye. You want this area blocked off so that light cannot come in from the back and affect the exposure readings. And the camera then fits in this case. Now this is the correct case for this camera. These cases were made, well, it's 40 years later approximately, and these have not necessarily withstood the test of time well, the materials that they're made out of. I'm just going to get these up around there. But all the snaps do work, and it is an okay case. It's got some lines on it and lots of stress cracks in the material, and that's just what happens to this material over time. And then in addition to the camera, with this Pentax strap, we have the instruction manual for the Pentax-M Super with a picture of exactly the same system here with the 1.4 50mm lens, and another booklet about Pentax lenses and accessories. And these are, they're used, but they're in good condition. So all in all, a fairly nice example of the Asahi Pentax-M Super.